Okay, time being 5 o'clock on November 11, I will call to order the meeting of the Personnel Committee. First order of business, and we do have a quorum. So we'd be on to approval of minutes. If I can get a motion.
I move to approve.
Thank you. And any discussion?
I have one thing.
Okay.
Is Sarah in the chamber?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. For the agenda items A and B, I think it'd be useful to have the header in bold, either before the description or just bolded at the beginning of the sentence, which matches what the agenda says. I just think it's easier to scan for somebody that's taking a look at the minutes.
Oh, sure. So are you referring to the minutes from the last meeting? Or are you referring to the agenda for today?
The minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, gotcha.
So agenda number 5A, 5B, if we could just like highlight police department policy manual.
Oh,
update.
sure. I see what you're saying. Yep, no problem.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's a great summary. I really appreciate how detailed you are in these minutes.
You
It's
bet.
always helpful, especially when it comes to going back and reporting to council. Anything from you, Tom?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so all in favor of approval?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, then we move on. Any public appearances for non-agenda items?
No, just staff in the chambers. No one from the public.
No one
All
from-
righty, then we can move on to the actual agenda items. 4A is recent news on city administrator and the city's response. Sarah?
Yeah, so the city's response, so we are going to be holding a personnel investigation. With that investigation, we'll give the results to the mayor for him to make that conclusion as far as what the city needs to do. This is a very general update. I don't have anything beyond just that we are going to be investigating. But if you have any questions or concerns beyond that, please let me know.
One question that I would have is how are other council members involved in, you said you give it to Aaron and he makes a determination. Does he consult with other council members as part of that, or?
So the mayor has authority to decide, to whether he has to issue discipline or not. Aaron, I don't know if you want to weigh in at all.
Sure. I guess it's a little hard to say before it's done, but I mean, I'm gonna take the recommendations from the report and the investigation and use that to base my decision on. So it's not a team decision, it's not a group decision, but depending on what it is, I mean, I might ask some people kind of, what they think, and this is the direction I'm heading. But I'm not going to make any promises at this point without knowing what they come back with.
Mm-hmm. I would appreciate if you value other people's opinions. Anything from Gabriella? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was curious, could you talk a little bit about how the investigation will be conducted? Who is conducting it, et cetera?
Yep. So we actually don't have those details quite final yet. So we're working through those. We're toying with whether it's the HR department, whether it's a third party, another HR department from another municipality. So we want to just make sure it's done right. So we're still working out those details, and it would be something we would start in December.
Go ahead, Gabby.
So I'm curious from Sarah, what, in terms of past experience of the city or policy, what are the range of consequences that might be considered at the end of investigation? Is there kind of prescribed list, or is there, or are you developing one?
So When there's an investigation, I mean, there's a multiple options for discipline. Sometimes after an investigation, we might find that nothing should be issued. Sometimes it's a suspension, sometimes it's a written reprimand, and sometimes it's termination. So it's all about the offense. And even though our employee handbook doesn't necessarily speak to this situation exactly, we still have that ability to make a decision on how we want to address this whole situation. So yeah, there's a number of different ways that Aaron could decide to handle the results of the investigation.
Let me ask Tom first if he has any questions or comments he wants to add, then Aaron.
Thanks, Dorothy. I guess my question would be similar to Gabrielle's. It has to do with you don't know the makeup of the body. I would think that to make it clean, that's the only word I can think of right now, that we should not even use our own city attorney. You may want to make it clean, just a real clean cut. And I would hope that you don't have to answer these questions. It's okay with me. I would hope that we may not use our city attorney. I'd hope we have somebody maybe from the public and from the business community.
Okay.
Okay, just to, so we really got some neutral people here. You notice I didn't say an alder, not me, no way. But, you know, I'm trying to keep that body neutral, and so there's no, it's just clean, makes it clean. That's all I'm saying.
I appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Aaron?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Gabriella was really kind of hinting at something that became very obvious to me in this process, is that we really don't have almost like a code of conduct or standards for probably, leadership of the city managers, and also probably the mayor and council, and some guidelines of, if certain things happen, if certain things happen, are there some basic things that we should be doing and following just to give some structure to the whole process? Because then it makes it easier for anyone who is fortunately never in that situation, but if that ever happens, that we kind of have a little bit more guidelines on what to do, and there's not this kind of dispute on, well, you should do this or you should do that, but it's already laid out ahead of time. So I think that's a key thing that I've asked Sarah to start working on kind of in tandem, just so we have that in the future. Hopefully we never need it, but just in case.
Okay. One thing that I did was reach out to Sheriff Mahoney, kind of putting on my county board hat, and asked him if he had recommendations for someone to work with outside the city, because I feel like, Tom, it's not appropriate for probably anyone in the city to be involved in this. And the sheriff did have a recommendation that I passed on to Sarah. So that will be in the hat among others for people that she'll look at for who's going to conduct the investigation. I will say on a personal note that I was very concerned for the well-being overall, and that is my main concern. I'm less concerned probably about one incident as much as I am about overall health and well-being, and that is what my personal focus is inclined to be, is to make sure that everyone is okay and everyone is taking care of themselves in ways that's appropriate for themselves. So I just kind of wanted to add that again as a personal note. So anything else before we move on then? Gabriella?
I had a couple more things. Number one, I do want to second Tom's statement that I do hope that we have a third party take care of the investigation, whether that be an HR department in a different city or some sort of other third party. I would strongly encourage that. I'm curious about So my understanding is that there's an employee guide or manual, and as Aaron said, there's not currently some sort of code of conduct that pertains to this type of situation. But my understanding is that there is a contract for the city administrator. Is that going to be part of the consideration for how we assess the situation? Sarah?
So, the employment contract will definitely be part of, whoever does the investigation, they're gonna be looking at the report, they'll be looking at a number of different factors, and then when Aaron goes to look at what to do now with all of the facts, he'll be able to refer to that contract, as that contract really is the piece that fits the city administrator's role. So absolutely, that will definitely come into play.
Got it. And then one other thing is, our performance reviews, or not, I guess performance reviews is not the right word, but is feedback from current city staff in Fitchburg going to be part of the investigation?
So that'll be up to the investigator. So if they start, pulling those questions and interviewing and decide that they feel a need to interview employees, that's a potential. I can't say that for sure, yes or no. It's really going to depend on the investigator and where they're going to be looking for more answers.
Great. And then one other thing about the investigation is, in terms of criteria for making decisions, is the reputation of the city of Fitchburg a criteria upon which you anticipate the investigation will be determined? So, what I mean by that is, in my mind, the council, the mayor, the city administrator, and our two chiefs are the faces of the city. And so because of the high profile nature of those particular positions, I do think the reputation of the city is a factor, certainly not the only factor, but it is a factor that I believe should be considered. Is that something you anticipate being a factor in the investigation, Sarah?
I would think so, but I can't answer for Aaron. Aaron will be looking at all of those facts and deciding that when looking at his contract and a number of other factors.
Aaron, is it possible for you to comment on that? If you're still there.
Sure, that's right, yeah. I guess to be determined based on what we get back. I think that the challenging thing is because those things aren't in handbooks and guidelines and codes of conduct, that it's hard to, and possibly illegal, I'm not an HR expert, to possibly use those as a major factor at least. Obviously that's something that is a concern, but I think that's why, and that's things you put in something like the code of conduct, so that that is a piece to it. I think that if you start penalizing on things that are maybe valid but not in anywhere, in anything, then you run the risk of getting yourself in trouble. So it's a fine line, and that's why it's so important to just evaluate those code of conduct type things, and the personnel committee will be involved in that development.
And one follow-up to that, I do understand that it's not part of the employee code of conduct, but my understanding is that it is part of the city administrator employment contract. Can Sarah or Aaron confirm that?
Yeah, so it is in the contract, so it's under termination for without just cause, actually. So it does say that any behavior that sheds a bad light on the city could be a reason to terminate a contract with the city administrator.
Thank you. And just last thing, I just want to make a comment that I appreciate that we are going to do an investigation. And I know I've heard concerns from residents, and I think this is a good first step towards making a determination of what is the next step. And I appreciate that this is being done in a public meeting that people can watch and see. And so I hope that residents understand that we are taking this very seriously. And I look forward to seeing how the investigation moves forward. Thanks.
Anything from your end, Tom?
Well, just a couple things now that Gabrielle opened up the box. This not only from this incident, but it goes across the city. When you're employed by the city, and when you're elected to the city, and when you're the mayor of the city, that goes with you on your back wherever you go. You have Fitchburg written all over you. Trust me. For somebody that's been here for 32 years, it's all over. And so it just doesn't happen to do with the chief and the fire chief and administrator and the mayor. It goes across the whole city. I can give you an example. There was a mayor in this city that hit a pedestrian, and it was just an accident. And it was all over the press. And it was an accident. Nothing more than that. It was an accident. We had officers in the police department that got in trouble. It was all over the paper. It was all over the press. It was everywhere. And you have to remember one thing where some of us go, including the mayor and the alders. I'll leave it there. We answer a lot of questions in the grocery store, at the hardware store. I answered 2 yesterday at the gas station. That's just the life we live. I don't like it sometimes, but it's a life we live. So be aware when you're elected and you work for the city, it goes with you wherever you go. I know for a fact. So I think that's real important to know that. And I do appreciate that this is pretty open tonight, and it's the way it should be, but at the same time, the person does have just cause. The person is not guilty until proven. So let's remember that too. But that's, I think, a huge part that the city has. It goes with you everywhere. I'll leave it at that.
And again, I would like to reiterate that I'm concerned more for this one particular incident. I think this incident is very likely a symptom of other things going on in his life. And I want to be protective of him. I want to make sure that he gets whatever it is that it turns out that he needs going forward. And I would hope that we'll be able to resolve this in the very best way possible. So, anything else from anyone?
I had one other thing, Dorothy, is all right. You know, in the employee handbook, I have to think out loud on this one. I've read it, but I don't remember. In the employee handbook, I don't think it covers elected officials and the mayor, does it?
It does not.
It does not.
Right.
All right. Let's take it a step further, because we've had mayors that have had problems, and I guess, is the city looking at that? Take me, for example. Mm-hmm. If I drive away from the gas station or get in a fight tonight, there's no, what's in writing for that situation? Anything or not?
So that's what Aaron is asking HR to put together, is like some type of code of conduct for leadership positions, some type of policy. So we do not have anything right now in writing about what happens if a council member does something like that. So that's the goal, is that we will have something documented and a written guideline that we can refer back to if there's a future incident.
Including the mayor?
Including the mayor, council members, department heads.
Okay.
Yep.
I think one of the hard facts that we have to understand is the city does not have the ability to fire elected people. The only way that elected people can get let go is if they get voted out of office or if they get recalled or something on that order. So it's an entirely different animal. If we start looking at putting something in the handbook, we can't just say there's no termination kind of thing that you can do for elected folks. So that will be an issue. Anything else on this?
Yeah, I gotta just respond to that, what I just heard. Rightfully so, but there should be some guidance out there. Rightfully so. But from what I just heard, it sounds like that we're untouchable, and I'm not.
No, we are totally subject to public opinion, 100%. We are accountable to the public. So yeah, there can be huge consequences. We get the light shown on us all the time.
Yeah, and sorry.
Go ahead.
I do agree with that. I think that even if the ultimate consequence for elected officials is an election, I do think that the city should set a code of conduct and hold everyone in the city to a high standard. And even if theoretically there couldn't be consequences for elected officials, I still think that there should be criteria for what we expect. And it should be above and beyond what is absolutely minimally necessary, far above and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? If not, we can move on to item B, resolution 20520, recreation staffing in 2021. We can start with a motion.
I'll move it's resolution 205-20, recreational staffing, I'm just reading off the paper, in 2021.
Thank you. Sarah?
Yep,
You
do we have a second? So it was motion by Tom. Do we need a second or no?
Not with the
Okay.
three body.
Okay, my bad. So we're in a situation right now where we have had no recreation programming, well, very little. I'll turn it over to Scott in a second here, but just to give you a quick summary, we've had little recreation programming in 2020. We've been able to redeploy our 2 staff. We have 2 full-time employees, Austin Koss and Chad Siegel, that maintain our recreation department. And so they've been redeployed to Public Works. We've had CARES funding to be able to keep status quo and keep paying them their full-time salaries. We are in a situation right now as we go into 2021 without any recreation programming, where there is some, so I'll have Scott elaborate a little bit on that, but ultimately we're in a $92,000 hole if we try to keep our 2 full-time recreation staff as is. We have plenty of work around the city where we can redeploy them to other departments, but we still need to come up with how we're going to pay for their wages. So if by chance we get some more CARES funding, that will be phenomenal, and potentially then we can be able to pay for their salaries and avoid layoff. We're looking at potential layoff effective January 1st for Austin, who is our recreation assistant, and then Chad Siegel, who is our recreation director. We do have a vacant public works position that we can place him into, but he would be taking quite a bit of a pay decrease. He would be basically being paid a public works employee pay, which is almost it's more than 50% of what he's making now. So with that, I just want to turn it over to whether it's Pat, Aaron, or Scott to give some more details.
Yeah, I could jump in if you'd like now, Sarah.
Yeah, that'd be
great. And then we can get Scott an option and the mayor to add to my comments. But basically, as Sarah noted, we're looking at a situation where we have the expenses in the recreation department with the staff. Any of our departments, you're looking at about 85–90% of our expenses are personnel related. The thing we're missing in this equation is the revenues that basically keep us above water in our budget when it comes to recreation. Recreation staff aren't paid 100% by recreation fees. That being said, recreation fees such as shelter rentals, community center rentals are part of the overall budget and are expected to be quite less than what in 2021 than they were even in 2020 because we did have 3 months of revenue in 2020. We're looking at the extended order now by the county through the month of April. So we're not planning for any winter or spring recreation programs currently. Ultimately, this is a decision of council. Our ordinance states that council is the body that determines if a layoff is necessary, and that would be due to the reduction of revenue or some other factor that would come into play. Now, the council would decide whether a layoff was necessary, but ultimately it's up to my position to determine where that layoff would come from. And we're just being upfront in this situation that due to the program reduction, the fee reduction in this department, that the layoff would likely come, at least at this point in time, it would be my recommendation that it would come from this department. So we wanted to be upfront with you as much as possible. We wanted to give our staff as much time as possible to be aware of the situation so they could plan accordingly with their families and their career. So I'll leave that at that, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Would you like me to, is it all right if I
Go ahead.
chime in?
Go ahead, Aaron.
All right, thank you. I guess, first of all, this sucks a lot and not something that I want to do, but unfortunately have to do, I feel like, at this point in time. When I was putting our budget for 2021 together a couple months ago, our hope was COVID would be getting better by now and we could start doing rec programs soon and it wouldn't be a problem. Obviously, that's not happening and COVID is getting worse. Recreation is incredibly important to me and I want to be able to do those programs as soon as possible, but I don't know when that's going to be right now. But my hope and my intention is to make this layoff as short as possible. Hopefully we get another round of CARES funding of some kind so that we can bring the position back immediately. And it would be a very, very short period of time that this would happen. This position is still important. I don't want to eliminate this position. I think it is a needed position. And to me, it's, looking at whatever options are available, Chad, at this point, the plan is to, reassign Chad to another department in a position that's open. That might be a possibility for the other rec department position that we are suggesting a layoff for. That, I'm not going to say that's not a position and not a possibility. Depending on what that is, if there's another vacancy, that might be another option as well to bring that person back right away. To me, it's looking at all options and having this impact be as short and as minimal as possible. I hate it, but up to this point, we haven't had to do this anywhere in the city. And I know other cities, other municipalities have to do a lot worse than this, but hopefully it's as short as possible. I'd like it to be less than a month if possible, because these are important people. These are important positions to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. I'll ask Tom and Gabrielle if you have questions for either of them first.
Yeah, I do. I guess if I could start out by clarifying a little bit here. I picked it up this way, that we had 2 people involved here Is there there's two people involved?
So we got Chad Siegel, who's our recreation director in the back of the room here, and then we've got Austin Koss, who's sitting next to him. So these are the two people that would be affected by this.
Okay. And the total was, tell me if I'm wrong, the total was like 92,000?
Yep, it actually 92,971, so pretty close to 93,000.
Okay. And one, I didn't get this part, was like January 1st for one individual, and what was the date for the other individual?
So Austin has been with us for a year. He, based on how long he's been with us, he would be the first one to be laid off January 1st, unless we have a vacant position that pops up. Chad, who's been with us for 12 years, we have a vacant public works position right now that we can place him into, and we can have him there the whole year of 2021 if needed. But the catch with that one is his pay would be reduced to a public works maintenance worker pay, which is over 50% of a decrease for him, pay-wise. So he potentially wouldn't see a layoff in 2021 if he moved into this public works position. And this is all up to them, what they'd like to do. It's not a for sure if he would even take the public works position. But if the city were to have future vacancies, we have a part-time library assistant position right now, but both of these employees are full-time employees. And so they can certainly, if they show interest in the library position, it's again part-time, but that might be an option, or any future vacancies that pop up.
Would Chad, would his benefits be the same in Public Works as I would assume they would be?
Everything would be the same, but Wisconsin retirement would go down a little bit because his how much he's making would be reduced. But yes, he would not lose any of the benefits. And for Austin, he would have at least 3 months of benefits after January because he would fit what's called a permanent layoff per Wisconsin employee trust funds. So we would be able to at least cover his benefits for 3 months after January 1st.
Because we haven't had recreational things in the city, for both of these individuals, what have we been doing?
Yeah, so they've been redeployed this year to Public Works. So we have so much work going on, and the parks, Public Works could use more hands on deck. So they've both been helping out in parks specifically this whole time. So with CARES funding, we've been able to still keep them at their same salary while they've been working in Public Works.
If I could add to that a little bit, is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
Dorothy? Yeah, if you'll notice that with the lack of programming and the lack of individuals in the park, we were able to do a lot of stuff that we can't normally do. You heard last night during the budget process that, we have more and more parks and less people every year. We have more and more miles of public boulevards and trees and everything else that we need to take care of. And we have less employees to take care of those every year because of, just pure growth of the city. But this year we were able to deploy these two individuals into maintenance positions within the park. And they took care of things that we just can't address in a normal year, given staffing. That being like painting of picnic tables. They redid several, if not all, and Scott can weigh on this later. All of the park signage, the park signs out there. We were able to keep up better on the grass. We were better able to maintain the ball fields, even though we weren't renting them out. We were keeping them open for groups to use wisely, social distancing. But we were able to do tons of stuff that we can't do normally because of staffing. And I think that was very beneficial to us. We were able to see what additional staffing can do for us. I hope in the near future, we can increase that staff to continue doing what we did this year. The guys did a great job. They worked hard. They worked outside their job description. They never questioned a thing. Both are great employees. Chad being a long-term employee of the city. And It really kills me to be in this situation right now.
The second individual that we're talking about laying off, how long has he been in the city?
So we have got the two employees here. Chad is the one who's been with us for 12 years. So Chad is the one in the white shirt. So he would not see a layoff. He would just go into Public Works. Austin, who's been with us for a little over a year, right? Yep, a little over a year, would be the one that would be looking at potential layoff effective January 1st.
The question, I guess, from what I've heard from the administrator is that I'm a little puzzled. What I heard from the administrators, we're running out of things to do in a city our size. I'm saying we never run out of things to do. And I'm just my thought, Pat. You know, we never run out of things to do. You know, now we're coming into winter, and we're coming into snow, we're coming into ice, we're coming into all the above. And I'm even thinking Christmas tree pickup. I know that sounds funny, but, you know, I just can't. I'm having a little struggle with this due to the fact that it's a big city we have. I know how the square miles, and I know what we have, and we can't find something for an individual that's only been here a year or something to do so he could save that position. And I know, let me back up. I can appreciate the mayor and the administrator and Scott and you probably trying to find something. But you know, my comment's going to be a little bit, can we work harder?
Yeah, I'd love to answer that question, Tom.
Okay.
No, we have more than enough to do. That's not the issue. We have tons of stuff to do, and love to keep them, those individuals, and more through the winter, and I'd like to add to our staff in the summer. The issue is we do not have the revenue, nor do we have the money in the budget to maintain these two individuals in their current capacity due to the lack of revenue.
So that was one question that I ended up writing down, is if Chad went to work for Public Works and then we got some CARES money, would we be able to backfill the other half of his usual salary from CARES money, or would we have to do something entirely different with him at that point?
If we got CARES funding, I think the same amount of CARES funding we got this year, let's say we get that, it's extended into 2021. Yet to be determined, obviously, with the political situation. But we would keep both of those individuals in their current position if that was the case.
And then keep the Public Works position open for someone else?
We would fill that position with a new hire.
Okay, and I saw your hand, Gabriella.
First, I just wanted to say that I just want to acknowledge Austin and Chad for choosing a career in local government. It's definitely a calling more than it is, and I just appreciate that you've chosen that. And this is honestly one of the worst decisions that's ever faced me as a council member. So I just wanted to say that. Secondly, my understanding from finance last night is that we actually are headed towards a surplus for this year, which seems like a kind of a miracle, but we are. And I noticed in the HR report, Sarah, which you'll cover later, is that we finally hired a transportation engineer, and he's about to start in December. And my understanding is that position has been vacant since April. It was since very early on in the year. And so it seems to me that there might be extra room in the salary budget for the engineering department that potentially will be rolled over. Is there a conversation about whether or not we can use a salary rollover from this year to fund those positions for a little bit longer?
Sarah, I can jump in here quick and then you can add to that. if that's okay, Dorothy.
Go ahead.
Yeah, unfortunately, we did have that position not filled for 9 months as Bill went from the transportation engineer to the director of public works. But unfortunately, when that happens, then we have to contract services out to other engineering firms. And so I don't know what portion of that, we can definitely get you those numbers, but a portion of that at least went to contracted engineering firms with the various firms that we work with in the city. But we can definitely get you those numbers. And as you stated at the beginning of your comments, Gabriella, is that there is a surplus moving into next year. Ultimately, those are decisions that council makes moving forward.
Great, thank you for that. Is it possible to get those numbers? That would,
Definitely,
great.
I'll definitely get those from Misty and make sure you all get them.
Thanks for that question, Gabriella. Another question that I had is this the only department in the city that is dependent on revenues in this way? And if there are others, what has been the impact on those?
It is the department that is most impacted by outside revenue, yes. So the other departments, we're not seeing any potential layoffs in any of the other departments due to lack of revenue in 2021. That doesn't mean it won't happen moving forward.
Hopefully that vaccine that's coming out works well. Tom, anything from your end at this point?
What did you say that the dates, was it January 1 for both?
Yes, yep. January 1 for the layoff for Austin, and then January 1 for the transition to Public Works for Chad.
Does this have, I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe in the next month or so, this has to come back to the city council?
Absolutely. So it's coming to council on 11/24, or on the 24th of this month.
24th.
Yep. It'll be at Finance Committee and Council. Just to throw this out there, I mean, there are alternatives, and I know Scott's here. I want to definitely give him a shot or a chance to, give his presentation. But, council could decide to create another public works position, so that, that would be something Austin can move into. So there are things that you can do. I don't know where you pull the money though. But that's an option that Misty had mentioned. So.
It sounds like either way, it's dependent on whether we get CARES money or not.
Correct.
Based on our current revenue, yes.
If we do get CARES money, he can stay in the position he's in. So creating another position, I would think, would be more of a hassle than it would probably be worth. I had a couple other questions that I think I'm going to skip, just related to the work that's done. Scott want his turn now then? Oh, did you have a quick question, Gabby?
Please let Scott go.
Okay.
Very good. I certainly, as the director of Park Rec and Forestry, I felt I needed to provide some advocacy for the recreation department and the services that they provide. And that's where is kind of the summary of the background information that I provided for tonight's meeting. And I think it really, my goal is in providing that information is to give you a snapshot of the number of people that are affected by the services that are offered by the Park and Rec Department. And I listened with great interest last night at the council meeting, where it was spoken a couple times, the investment in the people in our community, and these gentlemen behind me, Chad especially, in 12 dedicated years of service, has gone above and beyond the taking care of the people of our community, and as the council, you know, these are the guys that are on the front line providing those services for you. And, you know, when you begin to start to look at the numbers, you begin to start to look at the number of Facebook followers. I'm really not a Facebook follower of people, but there's a lot of people in our community that look to these guys and the programmings for a quality of life. And frankly, you know, I see it as a minimal investment by the taxpayers to be afforded these opportunities. And I did include, as part of this, the resolution R8111, which was really the policy that the Common Council approved in 2011 that we've been working off of. And if you take a closer look at that, you'll see that there's definitions, direct expenses and indirect expenses, and we have never charged fees to recoup the indirect expenses, which is the professional staff. We have the goal of collecting 108% of the direct expenses. And again, I see it as an investment that the community makes to have the shelters available, to have the parks available, to have the athletic fields available, to have the splash pad available, to have these services available. That's the investment that the community makes. And then if people do decide to participate, then there is a user fee, which covers, like I say, 108% of those direct expenses. You know, and just maybe in a closing comment, you know, this COVID thing it's going to end, and in order for us to be prepared to hit the ground running when we're able to do that, is we need to be structured and organized, and that's what these gentlemen do. And typically it's a season ahead. So if we're looking for a summer rec program, which I think is very realistic, the planning for all of that happens in the first quarter of the year. It's very difficult for me, just because of capacity, to try and manage and organize and say nothing about just taking the phone calls and getting the shelter reservations and all of those things kind of ready to go. So I guess, you know, this too is an indication of the clientele, the stakeholders, and the program that Chad has developed in his 12 years of being here. And you know, it's not only the recreation department participants, it's all the shelter rental participants, the community center rental participants. And I would ask, how many complaints have you seen or heard regarding those services? And they're dealing with thousands of people. So just in closing, I guess as an advocate for the services that are provided to the residents by these, I think it's well worth the investment and finding other locations to try and cover this expense. You know, we got a $20 million budget, and we're gonna cut these guys loose. It just is. It's really disappointing, and I'm hoping that we've got a lot of smart people, and they can figure out a way to continue these services for the residents of our community. So, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Gabriella?
I was just wondering if it would be appropriate for me to share that first page of, share my screen to show that first page of Scott's memo, because I think those numbers are really interesting, and I think maybe members of the public might want to see that. Was that appropriate for me to do?
Well, sure, that's absolutely,
Was how to help you with it?
it's part of the packet that was out there, so yeah, it's ready.
Can everyone see that?
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that people could take a look and see those numbers that Scott was referencing.
Could you blow that up one more, Gabriella?
Blow it up just a little bit more.
A little more, yeah.
It ends up fuzzy on the big screen.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
And this is available in the agenda packet for the personnel committee, but we have it on the record as well.
Yeah, people at home can probably see this a little clearer.
One of the points that I wanted to make is that it's not really question of the value of the employees or whether their employment should be dependent on revenue or not. It's simply we have a budget hole that has been created because we don't have the revenue coming in for recreation programming. So it's not saying anything about the guys themselves or the value of the work that they do or the jobs that they hold. It's simply that at this point, we don't have a way to pay them. And that's what we have to figure out is there a way that we can find to pay these guys? Because they do good work, even if it ends up not being recreation work. The work that is available to do through Public Works or other areas of the city is also valuable. And I would love to be able to keep them if we can find a way to pay them. That's the only real issue. More, Gabby?
Unless Tom has something first, I don't want to let him have a chance.
You sure? Okay, thanks. I'm not trying to be sarcastic at all. And Pat, I got to direct this at you. You know, the ink isn't even dry on the budget. It has not been 24 hours. And the agenda for this meeting comes out on Friday. Correct me if I'm wrong. It comes out like on Friday for the agenda. For God's sake, why didn't we know about this before now in part of the budget? Why didn't somebody bring this up to us and say, hey, we may have to lay off people? And it's kind of like now I'm getting this information afterwards. And I'm pretty confident in my statement that the staff knew about this before tonight. And it's like, now I'm sitting here and I'm kind of frustrated, and damn it, we just passed a budget last night and it's not dry. And now you're telling me we're going to lay off 2 people? Why didn't we get this last night? Why didn't somebody say, hey, Misty, somebody say something's going on here? And I don't mean to be too strong, but you know what? It's hard to swallow right now for me. And it's like, wait a minute, why didn't we know about this?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. That's why we're coming to you now, roughly 2 months before the 2021 budget kicks in. The council has the authority to amend the budget any way you see fit moving into the year. You also have the authority to state in 2 weeks, or the 24th it is, or I believe it's the 24th is your next meeting, that you're not going to authorize any layoffs and you're going to leave it up to staff to determine where we find the money and come forward with potential budget amendments for you. What we're saying is we wanted to give you the worst case scenario. We wanted to give a heads up to the recreation staff as far ahead of time as we could. And we did 6 weeks ago, probably, notify the staff that this was a potential situation moving in to 2021. We're in a unique time, and we don't know what is coming in 2021, and we just wanted to come forward with some options for you as to how we could proceed with the least amount of impact to any of our staff.
Gabby?
If anyone has any more comments, everyone's welcome, but I guess I'm just want to let you know where I'm feeling on this. I do not feel prepared to vote on this. So I feel like I need more information and I want to hear what other council members have to say. So if we do take it to a vote, I'll probably abstain, but is there a way we can just refer it straight to council without a recommendation?
You can do that.
Yeah, we can do that. What I wanted to do though, if we do pass it on as a recommendation, is add a further resolved statement in here, charging staff with making every effort to find a way to avoid layoffs, including by making recommendations for, budget adjustments that we can make for the new year. Is it possible for us to write something like that real quick? And then I would feel a lot better about approving this if we are charging staff with finding a way to avoid layoff.
And
Go ahead, Pat.
I think you could do that just by simply amending the resolution and adding another therefore be it resolved clause, or so be it that staff will do everything it can to find additional resources to allocate towards these positions, something along those lines. And it's something we have been trying to do on an ongoing basis. This isn't something we're just gonna try after this, but this would formalize it from your perspective.
If we're going to vote on it, we should have wording in place that we would be voting on. Does someone have what I've written just as further resolve, staff make every effort to, you want to?
I would say management staff makes every effort to find additional funds to keep these positions in place for 2021.
Okay, you have that, Sarah?
Yep, I've got it.
Point of order. Is it possible for us to amend it and then refer it to council without a recommendation, or does amending it mean that we're gonna have to also vote?
No, if you amend it, you can still send it with no recommendation, but it would go to them in the amended form.
Great. I'm happy to make an amendment then.
So that's a motion. All in favor?
Would you read the motion again?
Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so this is a resolution to charge management staff with finding additional funds to keep these two positions in place for 2021.
So it would be further resolved, staff make every effort to find additional funds to keep these positions in place.
Correct, yep.
Management staff, is that?
Yeah, so I have management staff. So I can send you the updated language when I amend the resolution. But yeah, it's further resolved that management staff will find additional funds to keep these positions in place for 2021. Will try to?
We'll work towards.
Work towards, okay. We'll work towards finding additional funds to keep these positions in place for 2021.
I
Okay.
have one other question, if it's okay.
Yep, go for it, Tom.
Include revenue.
I could have missed it, I admit it, I could have missed it. Did this go to finance?
It goes to finance on the 24th, so
It hasn't been to
it
finance?
has not been to finance. Nope. I'm sorry, you said?
It will also go to parks prior to the next meeting too, correct? Sarah?
Commission meets again in December, I believe, correct? Okay. So it would go to Parks Commission after the 24th council meeting.
The other thing that I'm not as certain will be as important if we add that line is I had wanted to put a note in there for reemployment stating that current seniority would be retained if people came back, so they would not lose their seniority. Is that already a policy?
I don't believe we have anything like that in the handbook. We have language about layoffs, but we do talk about recall within a year. If someone leaves, and then we can just call them back into the position. I don't think we address what happens for seniority wise. I'll definitely double check.
Might I offer a thought?
Go ahead, Scott.
Could we also include in that revenue collected as a way to offset the expenses? So it's, if we get ball diamond, shelter rentals, those kinds of things, can those be included as offsets to the expenses?
I'm certain they automatically would be.
Definitely. Every bit would help at this point.
Gabby?
I will also say that I think it's problematic that it won't go to parks before the vote from the council. And so I know that there is some urgency, in terms of the January 1st deadline, but is it possible to delay it so that parks can see it before the final vote takes place at council? I don't know who would make
Parks-
that decision.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but parks can have a emergency meeting too. They can have a meeting.
Yeah.
To answer your question, I didn't mean to jump in, but they can have a meeting.
Yeah, I just think it is important for them to take a look at it. I don't know how, whatever method is possible to make that happen, I would ask that be considered.
Okay, is it already referred to parks, or looks like not? Should we officially add parks in as referred to?
I would.
Okay, so we've got two amendments to the resolution then. One is to add the referred to parks, the other is to add the further resolved staff make every effort line. Is there any other changes that we would suggest before we vote on it?
No changes for me. I just would tell Scott that I don't know if you're going to take a look at putting together an emergency meeting of the Parks Commission, but I'm going to strongly consider moving to table the amendment at council if it doesn't go through Parks first. So I'm happy to hear discussion about that, but that's what I probably will plan to do.
What I can do is I can see if I can't get a quorum to, call an emergency meeting prior to the 24th of November. And that's, 2 weeks from yesterday, so I can quickly try to scramble an emergency park commission meeting prior to the council meeting. How about the idea of having a joint council meeting, or you have a park commission meeting and a joint finance committee meeting prior to the council meeting on the 24th?
I wouldn't have a joint finance and park and rec, but we could have those back to back prior to the council meeting.
Yeah, park commission first maybe, and then finance, and then council. I'll see what I can do to try and get something put together.
We probably need to add a public works time slot in there as well. Fact TV guys might have thoughts on that, how to juggle the Zoom meetings.
That would be public safety, I believe.
Public safety, sorry.
Yeah.
I just also wanted to note that finance has been starting earlier than it has in the past at 5:30 p.m. So just take that into consideration when scheduling an emergency parks meeting.
Okay, if we're ready to vote on the resolution as amended.
Don't we have to vote on the amendment first? I don't think did we take a vote on the amendment?
No, I guess we did not. So that's on the two amendments, one to add it to parks as a referral, and then the further resolve staff make effort line. Can we get a vote on those two items to add into this resolution? All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you.
And I move to defer to council without a recommendation.
And all in favor of that then?
Aye.
Well,
I will say
a
aye.
question- can I have a question in there?
Go ahead.
If you defer to council without a recommendation, it goes to Parks, and Parks has a recommendation. I'm a little confused on what you're saying.
Oh, in terms of the motion?
Yeah, right.
I just feel like I feel like I need more information. I want to know more about the any potential rollover from the senior transportation position. And at this point, I just don't feel like I can vote yes or no, which is why I made the recommendation. If we do take it to a vote, which is fine, I will likely abstain. But that's me. I hope that makes sense. I think that that's an option, is to just refer it to without a recommendation.
And again, I don't have any problem with that either. All we're saying is, we looked at it, we talked about it, we weren't able to make a decision one way or another. And we want to have Parks weigh in on it, we want Finance to weigh in on it. And then as the 3 council members, we will then weigh in on it at council.
So
I-
you're weighing in on Parks, you're weighing in on Finance, but the Personnel Committee, you're not taking a position just to move it forward. Am I just understanding this right?
Yeah.
Correct, we'd be passing it forward without a yes or a no recommendation.
Don't,
One abstention, and
Go ahead, Tom.
that's okay. No, that's fair. Okay. I'm struggling with it a little bit because you're going to Parks and yet this committee, you're not making a recommendation. And you have 2 people sitting here that I'm sure would like to have a recommendation from this committee. And I'm just kind of jumping ahead here, not jumping ahead in here, but I'm just trying to say I think it's important that this committee does have a recommendation one way or the other. Or, if you change the wording, I'm okay with that, but we should move it forward with a vote 3-0 or 2-1, or that's all I'm trying to say.
or 2-0 with an abstention.
Yeah, or whatever. I can't speak for other alders, but I'm just trying to think. I think it's important that it moves forward, because if I'm on the council and I wasn't on this committee, you know what I'd say? What did personnel do?
Thanks, Tom. I will withdraw my motion to refer direct to council, and we can take it to a vote.
Okay, that's fair. No, I think when you think about it, you'll like it, but you don't have to agree with me. So, but I'd rather have us make a vote on it. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
All right, well, we would be voting to, okay, so
The way
we
it's
can vote
worded and
on,
everything, Dorothy,
what is the motion at this point?
To vote on the resolution as amended. And can we do a roll call just for clarity?
And are we voting to pass it to,
Correct, but staff will reread it, Dorothy.
okay,
Okay, so, so you're looking to make a motion to vote on the resolution as amended, correct?
Can you read it?
Oh, you want me to actually read, the R 20520?
Yeah, just whatever you have there, what Gabriel said and whatever we have here. Yeah, I think you have it there.
So you want me to read the background of the actual referral? Is that
No,
what you're
just, well, we added tonight,
Oh, yeah, I've got it written down.
And,
I
you wrote it
follow,
down, I know you did.
Yep.
you wrote it down there.
All right, so further resolved, let's see here, bear with me. Further resolved that management staff will work towards finding additional funds to keep these positions in place for 2021. And so then we just need a motion to vote on the resolution as amended.
I'll move that we move the resolution as amended that we just stated?
Yes.
That move approval? Is
Correct,
that correct?
correct.
Okay. So all in favor of approval, vote aye. And I will say aye.
Aye.
All against? And abstaining?
Abstain.
Thank you. So we have 2 ayes and 1 abstaining, so it will be passed with a recommendation to approve with that added language. Anything else on this item?
Yep, and referred to Parks Commission, correct.
Correct. Then we can move on to the report from department.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Austin.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, so in the packet was the HR report. I try to highlight just some of the updates since the last personnel meeting. If you printed the report in color, you'll see it. If you didn't, then your copy looks like mine. So right now, we did hire recently a part-time police telecommunicator, but otherwise recruitment's been really slow. We've had actually very low turnover this year, which has been wonderful. We finally hired a transportation engineer, an incredibly hard position to fill. We even came to the conclusion of potentially using a GovHR to help us with the recruitment, and even they couldn't help us. They didn't have anyone that was available that fits those qualifications. So this person comes with a lot of great experience. He'll be starting in December, and we are so thrilled. We have an IT specialist in the background check stage. We are interviewing right now for an accounting clerk. Our payroll specialist is retiring, Susan Jordan. So we have Kim, who has taken her position. They're in the same classification. Therefore, we have Kim's position that's vacant. And so they're interviewing. And then we had police officer chief interviews this week, actually. So we had 8 people that went to the chief interviews. We had some laterals in there. So they're proceeding with about 3 individuals in the background check process right now, and potentially might hold some additional interviews as we might have some more vacancies coming up. And then as far as employees that have left, did someone ask a question, Dorothy?
Yep. Can you say a little bit more about the background of our new transportation engineer?
Oh, sure. I wish I had a copy of his application resume in front of me. What I can tell you is that he has actual transportation engineering experience. He's currently at DOT, but his experience comes from, I believe it's out of state. I'm so sorry, I don't recall his specific qualifications, but I can tell you the whole panel was thoroughly impressed. We had a engineer from the city of Madison sit on the interview panels, and he said he's been in 10 plus interviews, and it was one of the in various recruitments. He said it's one of the best candidates he's seen in a really long time. So unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't have his specific qualifications in front of me, but he does have actual transportation engineering experience, and several years of it too.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So we did have a couple people leave, though, of course. So we had our IT specialist leave. That's why we're in a background check process for that position. He actually secured a job in IT security, which is where his passion was. And then we had a library assistant resign, and those are the 2 positions that are most recent since our last personnel committee. Right now, so Initiatives HR is working on, we're right now going through a transition to a new flexible spending account provider. We've had a lot of complaints with our current flexible spending account provider. This is for, your medical and dependent care flexible spending. So just long wait times and whatnot, and some other issues. So we're transitioning to a new provider, which is very exciting. And there's a lot of work that goes along with that. But HR, it's been very busy. I mean, COVID, we're like the main contact if there's a COVID concern or question or issue. So it's amazing how much we're seeing an increase with our own employees with COVID issues. So, just be safe, and we're trying our best to. Every scenario and every situation is a little bit different. And then, of course, the layoff situation is very upsetting. It's hard to see our employees feeling the way they are. And so it's been stressful, but we're making our way through, and we're keeping very busy. We're still moving toward having all of our paper personnel files go electronic. So we hope to have that done by mid-2021, so no more paper. So that's exciting. So that's my report since our last committee update, or committee meeting. Any questions?
Go ahead, Gabby.
It's great to hear that the accounting team, it sounds like the person filling the position will be able to train, the person that was promoted is going to be able to train the person that's filling her old position. Is that correct?
You got it. Yeah, it's really nice. So they're already cross-training right now. And then the person that is coming in, they're going to double fill for about a month too, because that person will be back up for payroll. So yeah, so we'll be doing a little bit of a double fill starting in early December for that other accountant position. And yeah, we want to make sure it's a smooth transition. You don't want to get people's paychecks wrong. So,
That's awesome.
yep.
Congrats.
Anything from you, Tom?
Yeah, I have a question for you, and then maybe it's just the night, because obviously I've just learned about this layoff, and, so keep that in mind with my comment, but it might be for Pat too, but I'm sitting here and you're telling me these positions that are open, they have to be filled, like somebody quit at the library, and there's a number of them off the top of my head. There might have been maybe 4. That's just roughly.
So only since the layoff discussion, we've only had 2. So it would be the library assistant and then not the IT, the accounting position, and then our current library assistant position. So those are 2 potential
Was there
vacancies.
any, okay, it's a tough pill to swallow here. You're laying off a person. No, this is just Tom's opinion, okay? This is just my opinion. You're laying off a person and you're hiring 2 others. Why aren't we using the savings or that money from those hires to keep somebody on until we find out further what's going on in 2021? I'm struggling with that. Maybe I'm devil's advocate tonight, but why are we hiring 2 or 3, 4 people and you're laying somebody off?
Yeah, so that's a valid question. And some
doesn't make sense to
cities
me.
and municipalities are just not filling positions right now. They're doing a hiring freeze so they can avoid layoffs.
Okay, I'm with you. But we're not trying to lay anybody off. And, sometimes the rules of the game can change, not during the game, but before the game. They can maybe change ahead of time. And why can't we hold that position? Maybe they wouldn't get hired until, I'm making this up, until July, or maybe they won't get hired until June. And maybe we'll have a little better what the look would be then if we wait a little bit. But I'm hearing money that's there, and we're hiring these people, and yet we're suddenly getting somebody out the door.
Well, okay, so
Maybe
if
Pat can help me with that, but I'm sorry. Let's have you answer first.
Okay.
But it's just one of these nights, I guess, and I'm really upset that we just passed a budget last night, and you're bringing this to me today.
Yep.
I guess that's what happens when you're around the city for 30 years. But you're bringing this to me today, and we just passed that budget last night. The ink's not even dry. Boy, this is tough to swallow tonight.
Sure.
I didn't think it'd be like this. Can I ask a personal question? Just a little
Absolutely.
bit? And don't go into any detail. The gentleman that's been here 12 years, does he have a family?
Absolutely.
What about the one that's been here 1 year?
I don't know specifically, but everyone has family. It might not be an immediate, wife and kids, but
You answered. Okay. Why are we hiring these people? My answer, we shouldn't be. And let's reserve what we have. And if I was that gentleman going out that door and you're hiring people, I'd say, why in the hell are you hiring people when I'm getting laid off?
so the finance position.
Can you tell I used to work for the city?
No,
Can you
these
tell?
are valid. These
Can you
are
tell?
really.
I worked for the city
actually.
for a while.
Yeah.
This doesn't make sense to me.
So the finance position is critical. So if we don't fill this finance position with our full-time payroll specialist going out, we will not be able to make payroll. We will not be able to cut people's checks. So there's an urgency and
Give
a
me the other
desperate
people.
need.
Okay.
The library assistant, on the other hand, they just posted the position yesterday. So we actually just had a resignation. That is something that I'm sure would have to go through library board, I'm guessing. I'm not sure for sure on that. It's a part-time position, it's not a full-time position. There are no other vacancies that have popped up since the talk of layoff. So it's only been the accounting position and now this library assistant. So it's not like we've been having a lot of vacancies that we can just hold off on. I did let Austin know about the accounting position if he was interested in it, and he didn't show any interest. So, it's their choice if they want to move into a position.
But you see where I'm going with
Absolutely.
diverting that money to maybe another position? I don't know if that's feasible, but I'd sure look into it, and it's just a thought.
Go ahead, Pat.
I can weigh in, Dorothy, also.
Yep,
And,
go for
and
it.
Tom, those are very, very valid questions, and it's something we thought about over and over again about not filling positions. But the positions we are filling are being filled out of necessity. There's special expertise, whether that be finance or engineering, where we have gaps and we need to fill those positions. The layoff of our Lee Senior Parks or Recreation Department employee is being done, or is being recommended at least at this point, due to lack of responsibilities or a lack of work at this point in time. There are just no programs out there. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to fill the positions where there's a need, and where there's unfortunately not a need due to this virus is where we might have to, ultimately it's going to be the council's decision, but that's where we might have to lay somebody off. When you're talking about the library, they have a different budget. Their funds are allocated and determined by the library board. All the council does is give them a lump sum of money. We don't have the authority, or the council doesn't have the authority to determine what goes on with the library staff. So I'm sure I'll answer all of these questions and more over the next couple of weeks. And honestly, if there's better ideas out there than we've come up with, because there's been a lot of people working on this, and we've come up with, we'd be happy to hear those.
Thank you for that. Anything else? All in, all done? Any announcements?
I don't have any announcements. Pat, do you have any announcements?
None at this point. Thank you.
Okay.
Any upcoming meeting topics or
Yeah.
dates that we
So
should talk
curious if we can meet in early December for a couple of updates, a couple of agenda items. I know we typically meet every other month, but is it possible we could get it on the calendar for early December? Same deal, 5 o'clock on a Wednesday. I can send you an email and see what dates work best for everybody.
Yeah, we can do a doodle poll or something.
Okay.
Anything else? If not, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. All in
Thank you.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. And thank you to Fact TV also.